All right, welcome back to Genius. So in this class, this is our day four. All right. Now let's talk about CSS. Let's introduce CSS and see what CSS, what is actually it, and we'll be looking at some basic things about CSS. So we'll be reading the Docket book, chapter 10, 11, and 12. We'll also be reading for Robbins, we'll also be reading chapter 11, 12, and 13. Okay? Just try your best to read this. You don't have to finish everything today, but just have it in mind that the more you read, the more that will be exposed in books. This person has a different thing to say in their book, another person have a different thing to say in their books. And of course, I can't say everything here in this class. Because so that's why you have to read books. And when you read these books, if you have any question, then you throw it at us and we'll help you out. Okay. So while you're taking this class, while you're reading these books, if you don't understand anything, please drop it in the WhatsApp group so that we can actually see what you're having difficulty about. Okay. So the topics we'll be looking at is what is CSS. We'll take a look at inline, internal, and external CSS. We'll take a look at some basic selectors and properties, and we'll take a look at some color and font styling. Okay. So and your assignment is going to be your day three. You did a form, so you're going to be styling it with colors and fonts. Okay. All right. So let's jump into it. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. Cascading Style Sheet. So these are style sheets that can cascade. Don't worry, as we go on, we'll be explaining what this thing really means. Okay, these are style sheets that can cascade because a particular HTML document can make reference to more than one style sheet. Okay, so these style sheets can actually cascade. All right. So now it is a language, is the language used to style HTML documents, okay? So whenever you want to if you want to style, all right, if you want to make a different presentation, if you want to make your document look different, you use your cascading style sheet. If you want cascading, HTML is for the structure of the document, while CSS is for the presentation. So now you can say your cascading, your HTML is like when you have a building, all right, the building has a structure, but the building will not be beautiful if there is no painting, if there is no some decorations on the building, all right. So those decorations, the paintings, and everything that makes the building look good is the cascading style sheet, all right. We can also say it this way for ladies, all right. The face gives the structure, the nose, the eyes, and everything. But when they now do some makeup, when they now do some touchings, okay, you'll see that they look more beautiful. All right. So cascading style sheet is used to beautify your HTML document. So think of it like this: HTML is the structure, the bones of a web page, while CSS is for the design. So if you want it to look nice, you use CSS. That means the more of CSS you know, the more nicer your web pages would look. So if you want to be if you like presentation, if you like how things look, all right, and you're so interested in making things look very good, then CSS is a thing for you. All right. So CSS is used for designing and making your application look better. So now this paragraph now is actually for the structure of the page. So this is HTML. All right. But without CSS, plain black text on a white background. So let's go to the okay. So I'm going to create another okay, I will just rename this index.html. I'll rename it to day 4 to day 4 intro to CSS. Okay. So now, if I take everything out here, okay, when you look at this, when you look at this paragraph, this is a simple paragraph. paragraph. I hope my place. Okay. Now, if I this is a simple paragraph, okay? Maybe you can change the title around those. I'm not interested in those things, but you can change the title if you want. Now, if you look at this paragraph, if we run it, go click on go live, it's going to be a very simple text, black. All right. So if I want to if I want to change now, if I don't like this presentation, if I don't like the look of this, I can make some changes. I can change the font size, I can make it bold, I can do a whole lot of things. So if I want to do anything like that, I will use CSS. This is now the thing is this, your browser has its own styles. Okay, it is called the user agent style sheet. All right, your browser has its own style sheet that it applies to a HTML document by default. So this is the browser's style sheet. So if I go to inspect, so if you go down to styles, okay, let me expand this guy. If you can, you see now, if you go down to styles, we don't have any style yet, but this one is from the browser. This one is from the browser. Okay. So I can even, you can see this is the user agent style sheet. This one is from the browser. So if this HTML, um, there's something I want to do. Just hold on. Okay. Um, there's something I'm looking for. There's something I'm looking for. Okay, I can just forget about it for now. I didn't say what I'm looking for. So you can see this is the user agent style sheet, and that is what that comes with the browser. Okay. So you can make it blue, bold, bigger, or centered. Anyhow you want to style it, you can style it. So if you want to make that changes, you can use CSS to make the changes. So now if I go back and I said, okay, I want to make some changes, I can just add CSS here. Okay, I think we have I can just say style is equal to, I can say color. Okay, and I'll say the color will be blue. So if I save, go to the browser, let's see if we have the changes. You can see I have changed it right now. All right, I have changed it. So by default, it will be black. That's the user agent style sheet. But now, what I have done now is the author's style sheet. The author's style sheet is you, that is the owner of this document. You're the one. So this is the author style sheet. Okay. So we'll talk more about that later on. So why is CSS important? It makes your website look beautiful and professional. Okay. It helps create responsive designs. Now, the thing is that most times you will see some applications, they work very well on mobile applications, on tablets, on desktop, just like our website. You can see that any application, or sorry, any device you're using, it actually is very, very responsive. So it's with CSS that we use to do those responsive designs. So with responsive design, your document can be viewed from any device at all, no matter the size, the width of the device, of the screen size. Okay, so it separates content from design, making code easier to maintain. So if you look at what I did here now, I added, this is called inline styling. This is very bad. You're not supposed to be doing this. All right, there is something we call separation of consign. All right, your CSS should be separate from your HTML. So I will remove this. Okay, I'm going to show you how we do it later on. You can see here we are linking an external style sheet. So the same thing I did here, I can just go to this style sheet and do it here. Okay, so I can just come here and do it here. So Now that is what we're going to talk about it later on when we talk about how to add CSS. Okay, so your CSS should be separated from your HTML. Okay, it makes the code easier to maintain. So how does CSS works? So you can apply CSS rules to HTML elements. All right. What is a CSS rule? This is a CSS rule. Something like this is a CSS rule. It is a CSS rule tells the browser how to present a particular element. All right. Now we are telling the browser that we want it to present the p tag, the color to be blue. Okay. And then let me change this thing to red so that we'll be sure that it's different from. So here I have a CSS rule. All right. And I'm telling the browser with this CSS rule, I want you to make any text inside the p tag to be red. So if I close and go back to our browser, let's see if we have it red. No, it's not showing. So that means something is wrong. All right. So let's go back. So do we have a paragraph? Yes, we have a paragraph in the. Mhm. We have a paragraph. And is our style sheet not linked well? Styles.css, okay. Let's go. Why is this thing not working? Let's go and see. I'll go to inspect and I'll go to network. All right, it got it. So okay, so why is it not sure? So there's an error somewhere. Okay. This is our style sheet and our p tag. We have a paragraph here. For some reasons, why is it not working? Is my this is okay, okay. Hmm. All right. Okay. Hmm. I'm still yet to find out why this is not working, Sha. But okay, we can just continue. But we have a p tag here. We have a p tag here, styles.css. That's correct. Styles.css and okay, let's continue. We'll come back to it. So when you apply CSS rules to HTML documents, a CSS rule looks like this. That's what I've just shown you. So we have the selector and we have the property. So now we'll still talk about selectors and properties later, but let me explain. So a CSS rule is made up of a selector, and a selector and a selector and a declaration. Okay. All right, so a CSS rule has a selector. Now, in this case, the selector is P, and then the declaration is everything inside this block. Okay, everything inside this block of code, that is what the declaration is. So now, with this, we're going to talk more about selectors later on, and also, so this is called a property, and this is the value for this property. All right. So we'll talk about selectors later. So a rule, it contains a selector and a declaration. So this is the declaration, and in this declaration we have multiple. We have a property declaration and its value here. Okay. So all right. So you can see an example is P, which this is a selector. We'll talk about selectors later on. Also, but this is a type selector. It has the color to be blue. Okay, I understand my mistake now. Oh my God. Okay, so I put this thing in in all right, so this is the error. I'm so sorry about that. So it is like this is life of a programmer. All right, I'm not supposed to put it in double quotes. So it's just a mistake that I made. So if I save now and go to the browser, you will see that it's going to be in red now. Okay, so my bad, my bad, my bad. All right. So now you have seen we have a selector. Now in this we are selecting. Well, anyway, we are coming to selectors later on. So, but this is a CSS rule. We have a selector and we have a declaration block. Declaration block starts with a curly brace and an opening curly brace and the ending curly brace. It will have a property and a value. So, and the declaration can have more than one property declaration. So this block can have this one, this one. So we can actually have more property value declarations here. So ways to add CSS. There are three ways you can add CSS. The first one is the inline CSS, which is the one I just showed you now. The inline CSS, this means that you add CSS directly to an HTML page, HTML element using the style attribute. That's what I just did here. That's what I just did here. That's what I just did here. Here I use the style attribute, and then I now said color is blue. Okay, if I save this now, some of you are going to be confused. Sorry. Oh, good. Okay, so you can see there's something we call overriding. Okay, look at, anyway, we'll come to that later on. But if I go to my code, all right, you will see that I have a style sheet here. Okay, maybe I'll just leave this thing for later discussion. Okay, let me not confuse you guys more. So, but the thing is, I'm showing you how to do inline styling. So with inline styling, you use the style attribute, then you say equal to, and everything will be in double quotes. So then you now start declaring your properties. So the color is the property, blue is the value. So if I want to have more, I will just put a semicolon here. I can say what other color, what other, I can say font, uh, um, I can say font weight. Wait. I believe my weight is correct. I can say it is bold. All right. So I have two declaration. I have two property value declarations here. I have color to be blue and I have font weight to be bold. So if I save, go to the browser, you're going to see that this is going to be bold. Now you can see that font weight has been added. So it makes it bold. It makes it bold. All right. So now it means that you will directly add the CSS to the element using the style attribute. So if you look at this, we have the style attribute here. I say color is a blue, font size is 20 pixel, all right? But this is a very bad it's a very bad behavior. Do not be styling do not use inline styling. Makes remember, your HTML is for structure and your CSS is for presentation. So they are supposed to be different. So please do not be add unless, all right, maybe a situation calls for it, but make sure to separate your CSS from your HTML, all right? So the key feature is that it applies to only that specific element. Whatever style you use whatever inline style you use, it will only apply to this particular element. It is not reusable. All right. And as a programmer, you should be writing code that are reusable. So right now, we're only applying this style to this particular element. Unless you have in a case like that, you can do that. All right. It is quick for small and one-off styles. Maybe if you're just writing a one-page element, a one-page document, even a one-page document, you should be using something better. All right. It is quick for small and one-off style. So if for any reason you're not going to be reusing this style, no problem. You can go on. But what are the drawbacks? It's hard to maintain for large projects. It's very, very hard to maintain for large projects. So, of course, you'll be building large projects. So you won't be using this because you'll be building large projects. You won't be using this. All right. It can lead to messy code if overused. Imagine that we are now adding plenty declarations here, plenty property and value here. It will be messy, very, very messy if overused. Okay. So we have another one. the first way to add CSS is the inline styling, which we have just shown you. And the next one is internal. This means that you write CSS inside a style tag. There is a tag called style tag, and this style tag is always in the head section. So if I go to our code, now if I want to use inline styling here, so no, I'm using inline here. So I'm going to remove it because it doesn't look good. I will use internal styling. So I will have, there is a style tag. There is a style tag. Okay. So in this style tag, inside of it, you can now write your CSS rules. So this is internal CSS. So I can go and say P, all right, and I'll say color. I'll say color is red. Okay. And then I can say font weight is bold. Okay. So if we go back to our browser, we should see the changes here. So you can see, if I also come back here, I can change this to blue or green. Okay. And if I go, the changes are made. And you can see it is bold. So if I remove that, if I remove the bold, moreover, you can comment this out, /star, and then you end it with */. So this is comment. All right. This is comment in CSS. So I have commented it so it won't work again. So you can see it's no longer bold. So if you want to write comment in CSS, all right, you can actually use /*, then /*. So anything inside of this will not be read by the browser. The browser will not read it because it's a comment. Okay. So I'll just show you an example of how you use inline style internal CSS. So the key features is the styles apply to the entire HTML page. So any style you have in that page, any style you have, any internal CSS that you have, it applies to all the entire page. It is good for single page project or when testing styles quickly. So if you're writing a single page project, if you just have a single page to write, it's okay. You can use internal styling, all right? Or you want to test some styles quickly. But the drawback is that it doesn't work across multiple pages. So any internal style you have is not reusable in other pages. Any style that you have is not reusable in other pages. It's still harder to maintain for large websites. So if you have a large web project, you cannot be using internal and styling. Okay. So the best way is external styling. That's the best practice for most projects. Even if you're working with one single page, always use external styling. Always. All right. Form that habit. All right, you create the .cs file and link it to your HTML. So now let me show you. We have already seen an example here already. I created a style. You can call it anything. All right, I can change this guy. Okay, let me create a new style. I will call it index.css. It has to end with .css. So I can come here and say P, and I'll say color. I'll say color is maybe let me use another color here. I can just say it's brown. Okay, I'll save it. All right. Then I will go to the for intro. And how do you link it? You will use the link element, the link tag. This is how you link it, the link tag. So this attribute shows that, okay, the relationship between the thing you want to link, the resource you want to link, and this HTML page, the relationship is that it's a style sheet. Then all you have to do is to change the name to index if you want to use the index that we just created now. So if you change the name, all right, so we are removing this internal. So with this, now we have imported it. All right, we created a separate style sheet, internal index.css, and then we want to use it inside of our HTML. So we have to link it. So we use the link element, the link tag. This link tag can be used for other things too, something like icons or stuff like that. So, but now the relationship here, this rel stands for relationship. The relationship between this document and the other document we are also linking. So what is the relationship between the thing we are linking and the HTML document itself? It is style sheet. And where is it coming from? The href is where should I get it? The browser will ask you, where should I get it from? You will now tell it is the index.css. Since we have saved this, if we go back to the browser, we'll see that our color has changed to brown. Okay, it has changed to brown. All right. So it keeps HTML clean and organized. Look at it. Look at the HTML. We don't have any style sheet inside of here. And we come here, anything we want to do, if we want to add more things, we would add them here. All right. I can say, where am I short of properties in my head right now? I can say font, maybe font size. I can just say the font size could be, let's say 40 pixel. All right. If I save and I go to the browser, you can see it's bigger now. All right. You can see how easy it is. You see, so many people can work on this same project. All right. Somebody can just be responsible for creating the style sheet, while another person is responsible for the HTML. So everybody can use it. Okay. So it makes it easy to reuse styles across multiple pages. So if I want to reuse this same index.css, if I want to reuse this index.css in day 3, do we have any okay, we don't have any paragraph there. In day 1, we have some paragraphs. Okay, look at it. Now, if I want to reuse this index.css, if I want to reuse the styles, I will just come here and change the href here. I'll change it to point to index.css. Okay, and then I will now go, if I open this, if I go to the browser and open let me copy this URL, open a new browser, paste it, but I'll just have to change, I'll change this to day 1. And you can see now, all the paragraphs has been changed to brown color, and the font size is big now. So with a single CSS, you can reuse the styles across multiple pages. It is ideal for large websites or team projects. All right. In short, form the habit of external CSS. Okay. The drawback is that it requires an extra HTTP request to load the CSS. Through this, it is very minimal and browser. So the thing is that your browser will have to make extra HTTP request. So if we go to the browser now, all right. Okay, let me show you something. What do I do? Okay, how do I explain this? Okay, so when you look at if we go to the network tab, you will see that the browser has to do extra fetching. This is a request to the server. All right. If I empty cache, you see the browser went and got this file. And as it was passing the file, it also found out that, okay, there is another CSS file I have to also fetch. It went and fetched it. But if we are using inline or internal CSS, the browser will not do another round trip fetching extra resource here. Okay. I hope you guys understand. If you don't understand, please reach out to us for more explanation. Okay. So now let's take a quick comparison. For inline CSS, internal CSS and external, for the location for inline CSS, it is inside the HTML tag. For the internal, it is in the style tag. For external, it is in separate CSS. The scope is it only applies to the single element. For internal CSS, it applies to the whole HTML page. For external, it applies to multiple pages. For maintainability, it is very poor for inline CSS. Maintainability is medium, excellent for external CSS. So this is what you should be using. It is best for small fixes and tests in the inline CSS. For the internal, it is best for single page projects, but for external, it's best for large multi-projects. Okay. So now let's take a look at some basic CSS selectors. All right. Now, selectors are how you target HTML elements. Of course, you use CSS to style HTML elements, but how do you target it? How do you get it? You use selectors. All right. You use selectors to target the elements. So now if you want to target, now we have the first one we take a look at is the universal selector. The universal selector selects all elements on the page. So look at how it works. The universal selector starts with the star, okay? It starts with this with the asterisk, and then everything inside here will apply to all the elements. So let me go and show you. So I will go back to this day one. All right, we have a lot of elements here, H1, H4, P tag, and all of them. So if I want to target, if I want to make a a style that would go across all the elements, I will just go back to my index.css and then make sure that your universal, for me, I always put it at the top. So any style, anything I do here will apply to all the elements. Okay. So maybe I'm short of I'm just short of properties in my head right now. All right, so I will go with okay, let me just take okay, let me say this style I have, I want to apply it to every element. So I'm going, instead of using the p tag and targeting only the paragraphs, I'm targeting all the elements in this document. So if we go back to our web page now, you will see that everything here now has that same styling. So with the asterisk, which is the universal, you can target all elements. So if you have a style rule that you want to apply to every element, you use the asterisk. Okay. So this is good for resetting default browser styles. So if you want to reset default browser styles, you can actually do something like this. So it is up to you to do your styling. Okay. So now, we also have the type selector. The type selector is the one you have seen. It targets elements, a particular element. So this targets all elements of a specific type. Paragraph, hashtag, the hedge. So if you use this, if you use something like P now, it is going to target all the paragraph tags. If you use something like H, if I want to target all the H1, if I want this style to apply to all the H1, I will say H1. All right. If I save it now, you will go to the browser. You see that this thing is only applied to the H1 here. So this is called a type selector. It targets a particular element tag. So you will use the tag here. Okay. We also have the class selector. So if you have a style rule that you want to apply to plenty elements, all right, you will use the class selector. The class selector targets elements with a specific class. So how do you do this? It is dot, then the name of the class. So with what I have here, if I just want this to apply to specific elements, all right, I can just say dot, let me go with intro. So now the thing is that I have a class selector here. All right. I have a class selector, and any element that has this class would have this style applied to them. So I'll go back to my day one, and if I want to selectively apply that style, I can say, okay, for the H2, I want to apply this class. I'll use the class attribute and I'll say intro. Do you understand? So then the last one, I would also apply the class. So you use the class attribute and then the name of the class. So you can see we are using intro here. And if you go to our index.css, it is still intro. The name is intro, but here you will do dot intro. It has to start with dot. So if I go back to our browser now, you will see that the H2 and this one is where the styles were applied to. Okay. Don't worry, when you read more of the books, you're going to understand better. And if you have any question, you can also ask us. All right, you can see here, we are applying this style to this paragraph. So it is used when multiple elements need the same style. So if you have a particular style you want to apply to multiple elements, you use the class selector. We have the ID selector. The ID selector is specific to a particular element. It targets an element with a specific ID. And no two elements in a document should have the same ID. The ID is unique. So now, now, instead of using dots, all right, I can use, now, you can see the ID attribute starts with the hashtag, then the name of the ID. So I can go back. Then if I want to apply this to a particular element with a particular ID, I can go and say the hashtag and I'll say intro. Now, you can see that this is no longer a class selector. It's no longer a class selector. So if I save this thing now, go to the browser, it will no longer apply because it's not a class selector. All right. So now this is an ID selector. So if I want to apply this, I must have an element that has an ID. So I can come here in this H4 and I'll say the ID attribute is equal to intro. You can see, in as much as we have some elements here that have some classes as intro, we do not have any class selector in our CSS document. We only have an ID selector. So this will apply to this guy that has an ID attribute here. So if I save this now, go to the browser, you will see this applies to that. So we are using that ID attribute for the ID selector here. So you can see here, the ID here is main title. So this H1 is bearing the ID of main title, and that is why it is shown here. So the ID must be unique per page. Every page must have unique IDs. So we also have something we call the group selectors. It applies to the same style to multiple selectors. So if I want to apply, paragraph tags, H1 tags, if I want to apply multiple element tags, all right, I will use the group selector. All I have to do is to just have them separated by comma. Okay, so if I have my style now, if I have this style and I want to apply it to multiple type tags, I can say, okay, I want to apply this in H1. I also want to apply it to maybe H6. I also want to apply it to paragraphs. So now I save. Now this is called a group selector. So this selector now is going to target H1. This one will have that style. H6 will have that style and every other paragraph. All right. So if I go to the browser now, you see that all of them, you can see all the paragraphs have that style. The H1 have the style. The H6 have the style. But these other ones were not included in the group selector. All right. So what's So with the descendant selector, all right, we are looking at the family tree of the document. Okay. Last time I mentioned something that we call the DOM, document object model, that shows us the family tree. So it has to do with where is all these elements positioned. Okay. Are they children or parents of a particular element or stuff like that? So, but let me explain to you what I mean here. Now, if you look at this, you can see that the HTML tag here is the parent of the head and the body. The HTML tag is the parent of the head and the body tag. While the head tag now has some children, the meta, the title, and the link. The body now also has some children. All right. Now, you can see that the head and the body are siblings. Yes, they are siblings because the HTML is their parent. So they are siblings. Okay. And then The H1, all everything inside here, the HTML tag is their grandparent. So everything above any element is actually called the ancestor. So the body is part of the ancestor, and the HTML is also the ancestor. So the body is the parent of the H1, all right, and the HTML is actually the overall. Okay, so just take a look at this. Is how the tree is built. This is the family tree, all right. Now the EM is a child. The EM is a child of this paragraph because it is inside the paragraph. This strong is a child of the paragraph, okay? And the EM and the strong, they are grandchildren of the body tag, okay? I hope you guys understand what I'm explaining here. All right. So the descendant selector, there are plenty of the descendant selectors, but we'll just take a look at one. Now, this one selects elements inside of other elements. So this is, it targets only the p tags that are inside of the div tag. So this will target any any paragraph that is an ancestor, sorry, a descendant. Okay, so any P that is a descendant of the div tag. So now if I go back, if I say, let me put some P's. Okay, this P, I'm going to put it inside of a div tag to explain to have a better example here. Okay. Now you can see now this P is not a child of the div tag, and the strong is also a descendant of the div tag. So if we go now and write a CSS rule here, and say we want to target all the paragraphs that are descendants. So we can also say color. Color should be, let's say, blue. Okay, so this CSS rule now will apply to any p tag inside of div, and we only have one of them here. We only have one here. So let's go to the browser. Okay, the browser is not running. So if I open this now, you can see here this p tag. This p tag was selected because it is inside the div tag. Okay, so. Oh, sorry about that. Now, we also have more of them. We have siblings, we have ancestral, we have a lot of them. So as you read the book, you're going to expand your knowledge on this. So let's take a look at some basic properties. Now, once you select an element, you start it using a property. So when you select an element using the selector, the CSS selectors, you now style it. You start some properties of that element. So every element has a lot of properties they can work on. So we have the color, all right? We have the font size, we have the font family, we have the text align. So you can see the example here. The color can be blue, any color at all. It says the text color. The font size says the size of the text. The font family says the font style of the element. All right. Then we also have text align. So you can align the text to either be center or left or right. Okay. Normally, the default text align value, the default is top left. Okay, especially for images. All right. By default, they will be top left. They will be at the top left. Okay. So we will be taking a look at all these properties as we go on. We have the boss model properties. The next class, we'll be talking about boss model. So we look at the way they hide, the margin, the padding, the border, the background. So we'll be taking a look at all of this. But as you read the books, you'll be expanding your knowledge on most of these properties. Okay. We also have some common other properties like how do you display them. We'll talk about in boss model, we'll talk about this display, the positions and overflow and stuff like that. So these are common properties you'll be, as we go on, as we're building our projects, we'll be using these properties. Okay. We'll be using these properties as we build our projects. Okay. So thank you very much. And If you have any questions, please read the books. As you're reading the books, if you have any questions, drop it in the comment section so that we can talk about them in our live classes. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next class.